The DNA results came back, and the scientists couldn't believe what they were seeing. After 2,000 years of searching, we finally have genetic evidence about Cleopatra, and it's not what anyone expected. The last pharaoh of Egypt wasn't just hiding a tomb, she was hiding something far more disturbing. For centuries, we've been told Cleopatra was the most beautiful woman in history, a seductress who brought empires to their knees. But new forensic analysis suggests we've been looking at her story completely wrong. The real Cleopatra may have been fighting a battle nobody knew about, a battle written into her very DNA. The truth has been buried beneath Egyptian sand for 2 millennia. But now, thanks to one obsessed archaeologist and cutting-edge genetic technology, we're about to uncover what really happened to history's most famous queen. And trust me, the answer will change everything you thought you knew. Let me take you to where this story begins, not in some dusty library, but 40 feet underground, in a tunnel that shouldn't exist. In 2022, Dominican criminal lawyer turned archaeologist Kathleen Martinez made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. She'd been digging at a site called Taposiris Magna, about 30 miles west of Alexandria, when her team's ground-penetrating radar picked up something massive beneath their feet. What they found defied explanation: a tunnel carved through solid bedrock, stretching over 4,300 feet, nearly a mile long. This wasn't some crude passageway. This was an engineering masterpiece, a perfect geometric design that matched the legendary Greek tunnel of Eupalinos. The precision was staggering, the ambition even more so. But here's what makes this discovery truly terrifying. This tunnel was flooded, filled with mud and water, and it headed straight toward the Mediterranean Sea. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to build this. The question that kept Martinez awake at night was simple: why? You don't construct a mile-long underground highway for no reason. You don't risk lives carving through unstable rock unless you're protecting something invaluable. And Martinez had a theory that would rewrite history books. She believed this tunnel led to Cleopatra's tomb. For 20 years, while other archaeologists searched the sunken streets of Alexandria, Martinez had followed a different trail. She'd approached Cleopatra's disappearance like a cold case detective, not a historian. And her investigation led her to one chilling conclusion: Cleopatra didn't want to be found. Think about it. When Cleopatra died, she wasn't just facing death, she was facing humiliation. The Romans wanted to parade her through the streets in chains, to display the conquered queen like a trophy. For someone who'd spent her entire life projecting divine power, this fate was worse than death. So she made a choice. She would disappear. Not just her body, but her legacy, her secrets, everything. She would become a ghost, forever out of Rome's reach. The tunnel at Taposiris Magna might be the key to finding her. But as Martinez's team pushed deeper into the complex, they found something that made their blood run cold. In 16 rock-cut tombs surrounding the tunnel entrance, they discovered mummies. But these weren't ordinary burials. When the archaeologists examined the bodies, they found something glittering in the darkness of their mouths: gold tongues. These weren't decorative. In ancient Egyptian belief, a golden tongue gave you the power to speak in the afterlife, to plead your case before Osiris, lord of the underworld. But why here? Why at this specific temple? Martinez's theory sent chills down my spine. These weren't random nobles. These were Cleopatra's inner circle, her most loyal courtiers, buried with golden tongues to announce their queen's arrival in the afterlife. They were waiting for her. If the courtiers are here, equipped for eternity, then their queen can't be far behind. But while Martinez inches closer to Cleopatra's tomb, other scientists have been working on a different puzzle. They've been trying to decode Cleopatra's genetics, and they thought they'd found the perfect source. You see, Cleopatra had a sister she murdered. Arsinoe, therefore, was everything Cleopatra feared: young, ambitious, and legitimate. When civil war broke out in Egypt, it was Arsinoe who led armies against Julius Caesar. She actually managed to trap him in the palace of Alexandria. This teenage girl nearly changed the course of history. But Cleopatra doesn't lose. When the dust settled, Arsinoe was dragged to Rome in chains. The crowd wept seeing this young princess humiliated, and that sympathy saved her life. She was exiled to the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus in modern-day Turkey. She thought sacred ground would protect her. She was wrong. In 41 BCE, Cleopatra convinced Mark Antony to commit sacrilege. He sent assassins to the temple steps. They dragged Arsinoe out and executed her. Even by ancient standards, this was shocking. But for modern scientists, it provided something invaluable, a location. In the 1920s, archaeologists in Ephesus found a unique tomb called the Octagon. Inside was a skeleton of a young person, the right age to be Arsinoe. For decades, scientists believed they'd found Cleopatra's sister. They studied the bones, theorized about African ancestry, and thought they had a genetic window into the queen herself. Then in 2022, everything changed. A team from the University of Vienna relocated the long-lost skull in their archives. Using micro-CT scans and drilling into the densest part of the bone, they finally extracted viable DNA. In January 2025, they published their results. The skeleton wasn't Arsinoe. It wasn't even female. The DNA revealed a Y chromosome. This was a boy between 11 and 14 years old. But that wasn't the shocking part. The scans revealed severe deformities. His jaw was stunted, his skull asymmetrical. He suffered from genetic disorders that had twisted his features into something unrecognizable. Even stranger, his DNA markers traced back to Italy, not Egypt. We thought we were looking at Cleopatra's murdered sister. Instead, we'd found a deformed Italian child buried in one of the most prestigious tombs in the ancient world. Why? Who was this boy? And what does this mean for our understanding of Cleopatra? It means we've been looking in the wrong place. To understand what Cleopatra really looked like, we need to examine her family tree. And folks, this is where things get genuinely disturbing. The Ptolemaic dynasty didn't believe in branching out. They believed in keeping it in the family. And I mean that literally. Cleopatra's parents were likely full siblings. Her grandparents may have been uncle and niece, or possibly brother and sister. This wasn't occasional inbreeding. This was systematic genetic collapse. Scientists estimate Cleopatra had a coefficient of inbreeding around 45%. To put that in perspective, the child of first cousins has about 6%. Charles II of Spain, famous for his deformities, had 25%. Cleopatra's genetic makeup was nearly twice as compressed. This should have been catastrophic. When you breed this closely, you're not mixing genes, you're photocopying them. Every flaw, every weakness gets amplified. There's no healthy gene from the other parent to balance things out. Look at what happened to Charles II of Spain. He couldn't speak until age 4, couldn't walk until 8. His jaw was so deformed he couldn't chew food. When he died, the autopsy found his body contained no blood, his head was full of water, and his heart was the size of a peppercorn. That's what a 25% inbreeding coefficient does. Cleopatra's was 45%. Yet history tells us Cleopatra was brilliant. She spoke 9 languages, commanded navies, and negotiated with Rome's most powerful leaders. How is this possible? The answer might be more terrifying than the question. What if Cleopatra wasn't healthy? What if she was sick in a way that looked like genius? Look at her great-granduncle Ptolemy VII. They called him Physcon, potbelly. Historical accounts describe him as morbidly obese, with limbs too weak to support his weight. But look closer at the symptoms: swollen neck, bulging eyes, shortness of breath. Modern medical historians see something specific here. They see Graves' disease, an autoimmune disorder that attacks the thyroid. It causes goiters, prominent eyes, and most importantly, it floods the body with hormones that create manic energy. Symptoms include hyperactivity, rapid speech, insomnia, and erratic behavior. Sound familiar? Historians praise Cleopatra's boundless energy, her ability to work through the night, her quick wit and rapid-fire intelligence. But what if these weren't strengths? What if they were symptoms? If Cleopatra inherited this thyroid condition, she wasn't a tireless genius. She was a woman whose body was constantly in overdrive, burning itself out from the inside. But Cleopatra had an advantage previous Ptolemaic rulers didn't. She was a chemist. We know Cleopatra wrote a book on cosmetics called Cosmeticon. Fragments survive in medical texts, but this wasn't about beauty. This was about survival. Egypt was the pharmaceutical capital of the ancient world, and Cleopatra had access to everything. If she suffered from the chronic joint pain common in inbred dynasties, she had opium from Thebes. If Graves' disease kept her awake, she had kyphi, a sedative incense that Plutarch said loosened daily tensions like a knot. If she needed to maintain her legendary charisma during long negotiations, she had Blue Lotus wine, a mild psychoactive that produced euphoria. We talk about Cleopatra's legendary charm, but was it natural or chemical? Was she medicating herself just to function? Those elaborate makeup routines might not have been vanity. They might have been camouflage, hiding bulging eyes or a swollen neck. She wasn't just a queen, she was history's first biohacker, using every tool at her disposal to project divine power while her body betrayed her from within. This brings us back to that tunnel beneath Taposiris Magna. If Martinez is right, if she's close to finding Cleopatra's tomb, we need to prepare ourselves for what we might find. We won't find the Hollywood beauty, we won't find the seductress of legend, we'll find something far more complex and disturbing. We'll find a woman who conquered the Mediterranean while conquering her own failing biology, a woman who ruled through chemistry and willpower when her genetics should have killed her. The tunnel remains silent for now, flooded and waiting. Above-ground DNA sequencers and ground-penetrating radar sit ready, hungry for data that's been hidden for 2,000 years. We have the technology, we have the location. All we need is to break through that final seal. When we do, we won't just be rewriting history. We'll be staring into the face of raw ancient power, a woman who refused to let biology, Rome, or death itself defeat her. The last pharaoh's greatest enemy wasn't Caesar or Antony, it was the blood in her veins. And somehow, impossibly, she almost won. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.